after spending the past few weeks touring tracks across America. Today, the Ignite Racing League JP Alfonso Studios GT3 series heads across the pond to Europe and heads to famous Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, or Spa for short, to see how things play out in the closing stages of this season. My name's Justin Prince. Alongside the booth for tonight's action is professional strategist and spotter Trevor McClure. Also joining us is producer Eddie Smith, who's working the controls with as well, using cameras provided by the great Dougie Beard. Tonight's race is expected to be exciting, especially after last week's action, in particular from Sonoma, which really tested in turn a lot of the competitors on how they played around the circuit, especially though the mistakes that came in late that determined the race winner, JP Alfonso, for the first time this season. But just a couple races to go. The major talking point is simple: tight turns, long straightaways. Talk about Spa, Trevor.
Well, Spa is the longest current Formula One circuit at 4.35 miles, or right at 7 clicks for everyone outside of the US. It is a natural flowing road course in Francorchamps, Belgium. Opened originally in 1921, celebrating its 102nd anniversary this year. It is a fan favorite of many different series: sports cars, formula cars, motorcycles, you name it, they race it here at Spa. It is one of the biggest capacity flowing road course tracks in Europe at 70,000 spectators. This race is going to be interesting as it's all GT3 cars. We have a 60-minute bout, a 40% fuel load, which means these cars are going to make not one, but 2 fuel stops with a 1 tire change mandatory. We'll see how the strategies play out, whether the tires are taken early during the first stop or late in the second.
We've seen a lot of mixtures of strategies at Sonoma, in particular with that Maconi setup shop race analysis. Again, keep in mind, some of the drivers electing to take tires late last time. Some of them took the tires early, then went for the top-off strategy towards the end of the race. So they have to think about the right timing for that indeed. Get that, your Maconi setup shop race analysis. Keep in mind the championship took a twist because last time out on the circuit, there was a chance for a new winner with Nick Sorensen, Phil Forrester amongst those doing really well. And then a crash coming out of the pit lane, seeing JP Alfonso be able to pick up the pieces for his first victory of the season and in turn expand the points gap to just 4 over Juan Salazar. Jose Puig right now holds on to third comfortably. As we approach the final moments of qualifying, the pressure's on him. Alfonso with Salazar.
That's right. Every point is going to matter here. And looking at the times, there is not a lot of gap between the usual suspects of Forrester, Puig, Sorensen, Salazar, and Giancarlo Schliemann throwing himself in there. And Alfonso top 6, all within about 7/10 of one another. So this is going to be an incredibly tight race. And this track has produced some of the most memorable passes in Formula One history, as well as some just fantastic battles over the 24-hour at Spa for the many years it's run here. So I think we're in for a nice treat tonight, and all the chips are on the table.
Keeping an eye on Alfonso currently making their way around the final portion of the racetrack, in fact down the hillside, heading up towards El Rosaradion. And as we follow along with Alfonso here, you have plenty of racing experience, especially in North America. How would you handle a track like this tonight?
Well, key is to be smooth. With these natural flowing tracks, these old school tracks, your minimum corner speed is going to be the most important thing. That's how you're going to make up your lap time. It's not like a lot of these modern Formula One circuits or street circuits. You've got these really awkward angles and tight decreasing radiuses. This is just old school, flat out fast with a super tight bus stop at the end. Long straightaways, again, your minimum corner speed is going to be your key here. It's very inviting to carry it a little too much and find yourself off track. Again, being old school, there are a couple of spots on track where there's not a lot of grass between you and the guardrail, and that long and dreaded trip to pit lane. So keeping everything smooth, keeping the mid-corner speeds up is going to be really the key here for these guys. And also, just not leaving the door open to somebody behind you.
Keep an eye on some of the drivers who have point of view cameras today, such as David Dean this evening. Phil Forster is at the top of the board once again, this time only by about 11 one-thousandths of a second over Puig. And Sorensen, Salazar, then it's Schliemann rounding out the top 5. Keep an eye on car 10. We were talking a lot, Trevor, when he's made starts, that 5th place driver in qualifying. He's been very dominant in this series.
Yeah, and he's also, 4 wins on the year. Average start is 5th as well. He does tend to dominate when he enters, but he's only sitting at 88 points to Alfonso, the points leader's 203. So he's really there today to make the points race interesting for everybody else and to take points away from JP Alfonso, Juan Salazar, and Jose Puig. So he's really going to be the wrench in the works for all the rest of these guys out there, and we know he's got pace to do it.
Drivers finishing up qualifying. They have less than 3 minutes on the runoff, and the interesting thing is everybody's already made their way to the pit lane, so we are expected, and indeed will be, getting qualifying coming to a close early. So in turn, it's time to see how the drivers will start tonight across this 4.35-mile facility. Phil Forster, once again, starting on the pole today. Jose Puig in second. Then it's Sorensen and Salazar, followed by Schleichman in 5th. JP Alfonso, last week's winner, starts in 6th. With Barker, Dean, Santos, and York, your top 10. The last starters, Barry, Maudsley, Dean, and Knapp. Start towards the rear of the field. Of note, Knapp, about 8 seconds off the pole mark. Barker receiving the EOL penalty amongst the final preparations for tonight. So as we get ready to go racing here at Spa for 1 hour on the clock, your keys to victory tonight, Trevor.
Again, it's going to be keeping it clean, not leaving the door open for guys behind you. A lot of really challenging high commitment corners here, so it's very easy to make the smallest mistake. It's going to be the biggest capitalization for the guy behind you. So smooth, not making mistakes, and making sure you drive yourself to clean air so you can keep yourself there.
Currently less than a minute for the drivers to work on here tonight. And if you're amongst these drivers this evening, such as, say, David Dean and several others, where does your focus have to lie upon in terms for the setup? Same can be said for Forster, who is really enjoying himself for the green.
No, I think the biggest thing here, setup, is going to be the one that's easiest on tires. It still gives you the best performance, finding that balance, because we do know whether you're doing it at the beginning or the end, you're double stinting a set of tires. So whatever has the most average performance over a double stint tire length, I think is going to be who wins the race here if it just comes down to setup tonight.
Drivers have been reminded it is on green for the initial start here tonight. The finishing line, the endurance layout, again, is coming out of the final corner. So drivers just about all set to go for 1 hour of action. We're glad to have you with us this evening here on Maconi Entertainment. Bank Racing League, JP Alfonso Studios GT3 Series. The penultimate race, the battle for the championship. Alfonso versus Salazar in the midst of the championship fight. Keep an eye on them in the heart of the top 5 throughout the evening. Drivers get ready to start things off with the iRacing safety car off. All in the hands of Barney the Flagman to get us racing here from Spa. Forster just letting the car roll, coming up to the start line. Keep in mind, this utilizes the start and finish line around towards the other side of the hillsides here for the endurance layout. Give it a couple more chances and a few more moments before that run down the hillside.
There's a lot of tension here. You see Jose is really eager. He needs to be in line, if not behind Forster, our pole sitter here, as they come around hairpin down the hill, closing in on the start. Bernie's ready. So are the drivers.
Oh, some little tapping towards the bin backpack. Green flag is out. We're underway from Spa. Forster with a good launch down to the right side of the track, heading up to Eau Rouge, heading towards Radion. Being able to get single file. Sorensen clips the grass a bit. Alfonso already looking to make 2 spots up in less than 2 corners as they make their way up the Keppel Straight for the first time today.
This has been the site of so many historic and memorable passes here, and Alfonso's going to add one to the list here, as it looks like he's got yet another one as he throws it down the inside. Easy peasy. He's got the two Ferraris of Sorensen, or excuse me, Salazar and Puig, his main championship rivals, in his sights.
Puig indeed, and wants that battle with Salazar. Good start there. One driver to the back having some problems. That's Nick Sorensen in one of the BMW machines. All the way to the back of the field and turn to 14th after starting in the 3rd position with that trouble.
That trouble might make this a 5-horse race at the front between our top 5 Forester, Puig, Sorensen, Salazar, and Schliemann. Alfonso there just really doing a great job not letting those Ferraris run away with him in P4, but he's got Schliemann, and it appears to be somebody else in the Mercedes. I'm not sure who I got eyes on. We might have to do some more research, because there is a Mercedes that's come out of nowhere there.
Well, some of these Mercedes have been very quick. Dean in particular, McKenna Dean, done a really solid job being able to kind of fit through the field. John Barry in particular, though, has gained 3 spots already in his Ferrari just outside at the very tail end of this lead group. Here's a look on board to Barry. And keep in mind, the Ferraris have been talked about throughout the year with this type of racing to be really quick down the straightaways.
Ferraris always have some legs, though, but it's Lucas Santos. That's our mystery Mercedes. And we couldn't find him as he started 9th, and now he's hounding our points leader, JP Alfonso, for the 5th spot, or 4th spot rather, and it looks like he's going to get it here as they cross the finish line. Side by side going into the 1st or final corner, depending on your perspective. Not got the best line, but he is really chomping at the bit for that 4th place. Alfonso's going to have to fight for his life in that Porsche to keep it.
Mantor repairs now for David Dean, by the way, have been picked up in the initial first lap, so Dean will have to come to the pit lane soon. Keep in mind, Santos, along with Dean, work with Forster. If you can notice, the paint scheme differentials just about exactly identical. Looks at their cars for today. So already the top 3 point away by nearly 4 seconds. Santos trying to get the run now. Alfonso. Schliemann in the Lamborghini already fuel saving behind. A massive slow up for Salazar, losing 2 seconds in a straight.
Now that's interesting. He must have an issue. There's early
slow
stage
down
in the race.
That still has to slow the serve a slowdown. You don't serve the slowdown quick enough, you're going to end up getting a black flag. Alfonso slow down. Sorensen at the back of the field to slow down. Salvador's cleared it, and now they wreck trying to clear it. Alfonso trying to clear the slowdown, gets into Schliemann. Salazar crashes. He gets into Don York. They all slide into the tire barriers. A several car incident in the heart of the pack. Forster now up by a second with most of the leaders exploding.
Well, this does wonders for championship efforts of Jose Puig now, with Salazar still in the wall. Severely damaged car. Alfonso is really hanging on to try to score some points here, but Jose Puig is going to be the big benefactor from this mess back there. This is one of the things I dislike about iRacing that we don't see in the real world, is these artificial slowdown penalties, and drivers, of course, want to get them done not in the best place, but the soonest place possible, and that tends to not always translate into the safest conditions on the track.
Know who that impacts the most? Salazar, the championship runner. Remember, there were some drivers with troubles last time at Sonoma. Salazar lost a few spots late. He just lost a huge chunk of points compared to Alfonso, who did not get mandatory repairs because of that. And you have Puig, keep in mind, too, is the only car within 5 seconds of Forster now.
That's right. He's looking to score maximum points of our top 4 here. It would put him in striking distance with Forster for P1 at the end of this race. So this would be interesting to see how these guys contend with one another, how Jose handles this extra pressure of being able to really take the lead of the championship if he gets around Forster this evening.
Let's take a look at how this all started with this entire sequence. It all really started with the off track and the slowdown, and then that slowdown essentially bunched up. Salazar cleared up at this point. Alfonso did not. And then all this.
What what a mess. That's a series of unfortunate events, and likely at one of the worst places on track it could happen.
So look back here at the replay here. It was, I think, up the hillside through Radion and El Rouge. Yes. Go forward there. You cannot cut the curb by not even close to that amount. So that's the reason for Salazar. And that is the initial bunch up point we see.
Correct, and Alfonso had the same deal. He was 4 off at Radion cresting the hill under pressure from Lucas Santos, who's now our P3 runner. And he had a similar penalty to serve as well, and it was just a perfect storm of drivers trying to get that penalty cleared as soon as possible and get back to racing, and that just causes this mess here into the corner.
And the funny thing is, Alfonso, still having to sort of slow down, decides to start serving after the pass, and then, yeah, Salazar almost saved it. No, he didn't.
It's like watching a pinball in a pinball machine, for those of you old enough to remember those. Just a mess. But that has really shaken things up at the front. Forrester and Puig remain about 4 car lengths apart. Puig slowly but surely catching him up. That's going to be an interesting run up front. But we have Lucas Santos, who started 9th, running 3rd. He can see the 2 leaders. We have Adam Barker, another P7 starter, running in 4th, very strong in our lead BMW. And Giancarlo Schliemann, someone involved as a bystander in all of that mess, but he finds himself back in 5th place, and by the looks of it, doesn't seem like his pace has been that hampered by those incidents.
Once the mandatory repairs, by the way, Salazar already fixing them. Don York having to get them fixed. David Dean amongst those who has still not come in, intriguingly enough, to service mandatory repairs and may be on the verge of a disqualification this lap. Keep in mind, Puig is not making it easy with how he's been handling this run in the draft, and the draft can be a bit of an equalizer. On the other hand, Trevor, you get to this section. If you can't handle this section, you can't capitalize on the draft.
Oh, that's absolutely right. If a car can gap you in this tight, twisty section, not going to be close enough to really take advantage of the draft and the places where it matters. And if you're not there, can't take it. So it'll be really interesting to see how these guys handle it. But Jose Puig was 0.5 of a second quicker last time by. He's already quicker in Sector 1 and Sector 2 this lap on Forrester. So he's got the bit between his teeth, and he is going for that lead.
And the major thought here, too, we've seen this a little bit for some time at Sonoma. Do you take the chance to make the pass immediately, or do you try and save the fuel to think big picture?
Well, if I have the pace advantage that Puig does right now, I'm going to sit back. I'm going to lay the pressure on so thick until Forrester makes a mistake. I have no reason to take the lead right now. We haven't even made it to our first pit stop window. We're 9 minutes into the race. Leading at this stage is of no importance. You score no points leading 9 minutes into the race. So I sit back, I bide my time. If Forrester hands it over to me, sure, I'll take it. Absolutely. With the pace Jose's got right now, he doesn't have to burn down his equipment to take the lead. He just needs to sit back, the pressure on, maybe give him a little nudge here and there as he did there in turn 1. It's really no critical reason to be in the lead right now for Jose Puig. He knows he's got it. He's just got to sit back and be smart.
Them up the curbside. Here comes the true test. Puig has the run. Forrester taking the middle of the track defensively. Puig decides to go for the lead. Heading up to the Coleman Malmedy. There's the lift. There's the pass. And moved the Ferrari up to first spot over the Mercedes AMG.
Really smart move there. Like I said, Jose knows he has the pace. You know the Ferrari's got legs on the straightaway. Really well-timed, smart pass there, but might have some traffic here as Juan Salazar is only about 10 car lengths ahead of Jose Puig, under threat to go a lap down.
Yeah, I was going to say, potentially the traffic management can come into play. However, he's starting to pull away a little bit. Respective pack. Speaking of battles, though, Barker, we mentioned, really taking that Hello Kitty car up through the field, up 3 spots, holding off the Lamborghini. Finding the pressure with the purple colors.
That's definitely an interesting choice of livery, if you ask me, but all for it. He's got Schliemann still on his bumper, but it looks like Schliemann's got a little bit of damage from being pinballed around in an earlier incident, so that could be hampering his pace, but certainly it's not going to be an easy run for Adam Barker to keep Hello Kitty in P4.
I was going to say, though, Schliemann last time by was quicker than the race leader in Puig. So there is some strong pace still. Just been the matter of trying to find a way to close up 8 seconds. It's so also difficult to gain when you lose the track position early.
That's absolutely right, especially in GT3 racing where it is so inherently tight between the manufacturers. It really comes down to who's driving the better car with the better setup. And Schliemann has done that numerous times. Like I said, multi-time winner in this series and always a threat when he runs. And I'm certainly not going to discount him this early in the race for a podium finish and possibly even a win.
Keep in mind, speaking of the podium, been close with Santos. Speaking of also close, Forster, he's now looking for the response. No choice to make the move there. Defensive all the way to the right side of the point where Puig was in the grass for a second. Forster decides to just lift off.
And that's smart. Now the shoe's on the other foot for Forrester. He knows he can stay in the draft and keep up with Puig. He's really got to mind his P's and Q's and minimize his risk, pick the right and safe time, take this pass. And conversely, he can also just in his tracks, give some fuel and shorten his pit stop time on the refueling and pass Jose in the pit lane without taking any risk on track at all. So Jose's really got to be careful to not make a mistake here and hand it over, but he's also kind of got to get on with it if he doesn't want to get jumped in the pit lane from Forrester.
Take a look back, and now the battle for third as Santos has fallen within a second of those 4 for 5th place cars. David Dean, we mentioned, had mandatory repairs. He did not serve the mandatory repairs, so David Dean's race is done. He's been disqualified by the iRacing server, so he will no longer be able to finish this race. We're down to 12 running, with Sorensen also out of the race. Still, though, Santos is slowly creeping back into this picture, right into the reach of Barker.
I think Schliemann's presence there behind Barker is really pumping up both of their pace, and that's really bad news for Santos as he's now only about 1.2 seconds ahead of these guys, maybe less as we get through the bus stop here. It's not looking good for Santos. He's really got to keep on the right side pedal if he wants to keep third place.
And with your resume, you've won some of the biggest events in all of endurance racing as spotter, as strategist. Very, very successful when it comes to your IMSA career, experience in TCR competition. What would you, first of all, be talking about if this was a real-world situation to try and talk through your driver in this case?
Well, for Jose, I would keep him calm. He's going to be under threat from Forrester every time they get Adderati on down that big long straightaway. So it's really just keeping him cool under pressure, keeping him in the helmet, keep him focused, and make sure he doesn't make any mistakes. Because right now it's Jose's race to lose. I would even tell him it's inconsequential at this point if Forrester gets back around you, because you know you can just drive right by him on the straightaway by not making a mistake and keeping it smooth. Or the guys like Santos, Barker, and Schliemann. Santos, I don't think has a podium in this series as of yet, so he might have an additional bit of pressure he's putting on himself, and I would do my best to curtail that and keep him stake free, because that's what's going to keep him in P3. As we have Adam Barker now about a car length and a half now, Hello Kitty breathing down his neck. It's not really a good position, but it's also We're only a quarter of the way through the race. There's still long runnings to go. What happens now might not make a difference for the result. On the other hand, if I were Schliemann's crew chief or spotter, I would be telling him to go like absolute hell, because we know that he's got incredible pace. I know that he can do it, and we've had a pretty unfortunate event being caught up in all of that schmozzle at the beginning of the race. So it would just be a go for broke, checker or wreckers kind of situation, because we're not in the championship. Go for glory and push like hell. And so you've got a few different mentalities and positions that these drivers find themselves in, even though they're all running the same race nose to tail now.
Looking on board with Barker, keep in mind. Barker several times has been a little bit snappy, so has Santos on these corner exits too.
Absolutely, but they're both going to be under threat from Schliemann as long as they're battling and slowing each other down. Schliemann's back there just licking his lips, and he's only about 2 car lengths behind our onboard runner of Adam Barker here, and could very well turn into that famous Schumacher-Zonta-Hakkinen pass from the year 2000 in the same area we're traveling here on track now, as you see the draft really coming into favor for Adam Barker.
A good setup going up the Radion. Barker to the right side. Getting a bit of a fight back from Santos. Santos trying to hold it to the curbs, heading through Lake Combe. Near contact to Malmedy. Barker able to make the pass. So Santos shuffle back to 4th position, still a +5 of the race. But not over yet this fight.
Absolutely not, and it's definitely getting spicier and spicier as Schliemann gets closer and closer. And again, we get another straightaway. Mercedes, it might not be the Ferrari in a straightaway, but it's always got good top-end speed with that big 6.3-liter Mercedes V8 up front. Winners recently of the 24-hour Daytona and the 12-hour Bathurst in real world. So those Mercedes are quite hooked up right now, and certainly no slouch in a straightaway.
Now, as we quickly approach our first pit stop into the race, we'd like to remind you that tonight's action is here on Maconi Entertainment. You should contact us through social media to be able to see how you can find yourself on the air for Maconi Entertainment with your respective event, league, or series. Contact Maconi Entertainment, broadcasting information. The action making its way forward with 18 estimated laps to go, this time by the stripe. Santos looking to line things back up on Barker from the battle for 3rd. Not close enough for the send. A little earlier on the brakes, in fact, goes the Mercedes AMG for the corner.
Yeah, we are nose to tail here now, and it's just going to keep getting better as Schliemann's got a nose now on Santos. Looking left side. Won't have anything for him for this corner, but certainly setting him up for Al Rouge and Radion.
There's the crossback coming up towards the classic pit straight. Schliemann likes to back off, go single file. Like to keep it behind Santos. Keep in mind, Alfonso is closing in. 6 seconds back of these drivers. The battle he had been having with McKenna Dean has come to a close with Dean now out of the race.
That's unfortunate. That was shaping up to be a pretty decent battle between Alfonso and Dean. The pace was quite similar, as it looks like we've got more battles between Schliemann and Santos, and it looks like it might stick, but Santos is fighting back. That big grunt from the Mercedes is really helping him out of the corners.
A little bit too high, though, going through the corner, up through Ravage. There goes Schliemann, heading off to Jackie Ixt, able to make it work to be able to get up to 4th.
I think we're going to see Schliemann set sail here now with Hello Kitty next in his sights. But in clean air here, I think Schliemann's going to do his best to make up a lot of time here. Interesting to see how these shake out in our first round of pit stops, which should be coming up any lap now that we're 20 minutes down into the race.
Slowly approaching the pit window. Let's take a look at what happened to McKenna Dean. This happened in the past lap or so. And there that goes. And a quick Alt F4.
That's unfortunate. You hate to see it, but certainly something that happens in our sport, both virtually and in the real world. So we've got Puig there, really nice 1 second lead now over Forrester, kind of holding steady here. Couple of guys in front of him, Don York and Juan Salazar, trying to fight to stay on the lead lap, but that could be interesting implications for our top two as they work through some traffic here in the next couple of laps.
You mentioned pit stops being around the corner. Alfonso just took his first pit stop of the race, coming in from the 6th position, so the window is open. About 49 minutes to go in the race.
I think that's a good call. I mean, he's far enough back. He's the championship leader. He's got to do something a little different in an effort to try to claw back any track position or any positions that are out of his grasp at the moment. So really interesting to see him take his stop here. It'll be interesting to see what service he does. Still not so far back behind the leaders that he should not go a lap down here in case of any sort of unforeseen caution periods or anything like that, but should remain on the lead lap even after service. So decision here by Alfonso. We'll see if he takes tires or just fuel this time.
Very curious on that. And you already see him getting the wheel in position on the respective pit stop. But looks to be up on the jacks, in fact, for the service. So that answers the question there when it comes to Alfonso's strategy.
Absolutely, and I think it's one I agree with, but something I don't agree with is our change of the lead. If we can go, we've got a Mercedes back up front. Small mistake from Jose Puig. Saw him run wide, and that gave the lead right back to Forrester.
Let's take a look at the issue. Way off the grass.
That was a spot too early on turn in, I believe, but just a bit outside, and he's got more work to do now as the leader is once again that Mercedes of Philip Forrester.
So, we able to take the track to be able to keep within range. Here's a look at the onboard on what gave Forrester the lead. Shouldn't be surprised that this car is now in the pit.
It doesn't look like he has much damage, but once again, just having to do something a bit different. Now, this is the time for Forrester to channel his inner Michael Schumacher and just put down an absolute banger of a qualifying lap. Try to open that gap that much more. Puig once they cycle through this pit stop. Really interesting things happening here. We've got some early takers, we've got some mistake makers, and all sorts of different pit strategies going into play here now.
So now it's going to be intriguing how far some of the drivers go. Remember, Forrester was among the drivers who pushed the furthest previous event here at Spa.
It's certainly the smart thing to do this stage in the race. You go as long as you can because inevitably you're going to reduce the amount of fuel you need to put in your car to make it to the end. And that reduces your time stationary on pit lane in those crucial seconds where you're just sitting there. Also looks like we have Santos on pit road as well from what would have been 4th or 5th place if I'm not mistaken.
Let's take a look at a replay because you may have noticed Sleeman had some time loss. I'm not sure what the issue was here. Look at this. He goes way wide and then stops at the side of the track. It just parks it for a good 30-40 seconds.
That's certainly an interesting strategy. But yeah, no, it's I wonder if he has an equipment failure or some sort of issue, perhaps with the steering wheel. God forbid it came off on him. That certainly happens in real life on occasion. But it's like he is back underway, but certainly a now insurmountable deficit without a bit of help.
So Sleeman, despite the decision to stop on the circuit that cost him now 39 seconds to the leader, still holding on to the top 4 for now, but likely losing several couple spots to drivers like Forster. Speaking of which, pit stop time for Philip Forster. Adam Barker also coming in this time by, expecting the rest of the drivers to peel on in based on that strategy today.
Absolutely, and this pit lane here at Spa, especially for the sports cars, is agonizingly long. So we see him taking the round there. He's not even yet to his box. Such the massively perceived loss of time as we have Jose Puig really pushing hard, trying to cycle back through a round to possibly get the undercut here on Forster as he still makes his way down to his box at a cool 60 kilometers an hour, about 37.5 miles an hour. It's pretty nerve-wracking because that's all you can do without penalty. Because we have Jose Puig going through the bus stop here, so it's going to be interesting to see how these two cycle out as Forster looks to be only taking on fuel.
So interesting. The difference in strategy. Yeah, 11 seconds on the fuel. Forster electing to take the tires, it looks like, for the ladder stop. Everybody else so far on their scheduled service is coming and taking fresh rubber.
That's it. As Forster's leaving the pit lane, they're coming to the start line with Puig as he enters Al Rouge now. So there's going to be a fairly sizable gap here that Puig has to close up, but knowing that he's going to have a shorter stop the second time around. So this is the crucial time for Jose, who has new tires. Forster's old. He's got to now try to close up this gap as much as possible, and it looks like the delta between a tire stop and a fuel stop.
Oh, and a crash! Adam Barker has just slammed the wall coming out of the pit lane.
Oh, that's no good.
Yeah, that car, significant damage. Barker having to take mandatory repairs, already parking the car. And an absolute disastrous sequence there. John Barry has done the same thing in the same section 2 in live action. Let's look first at what happened to the BMW.
Oh yeah, just too much speed on perhaps cold tires, but too much speed regardless, and rear end loses. He hooks it into the wall, and that's going to be a lengthy repair.
And on top of that, that same time, John Barry did the same thing and gave damage to Sleeman's car. Take a look. Barry exits the pit lane in the same exact spot. Has the trouble. Here's the problem. There's a car behind him this time.
Oh. Sleeman might have gotten away with just minor body damage there, but if it weren't for bad luck, he'd have no luck at all in this race. But things might be turning in his favor as he's still holding P4 at the moment, even with 2 incident involvements and that very bizarre 30 to 40 second stop voluntarily on the side of the racetrack. He might find himself in a podium position yet.
Yeah, it's not been a fun day for the purple car. So either way, Lehman's still keeping on going, now has some small scrapes on that right front fender. The lead with the different strategy has now expanded to about 12 seconds. And now it's going to be the huge thing. How it plays out post-race is going to be the huge talking point. Or rather, once the final stops come into play.
As I was saying before, we had our pit lane crash extravaganza. This is the critical time for Jose Puig. He's got new tires. Forster does not. Needs to push like hell to close this gap so that it's less than the time delta between just fuel and a tire stop that Forster still has to take. It looks like, at the moment, that difference between Forster's stop and Jose's stop is about 12 seconds. So Jose now is just investing time for later down the road that's going to pay dividends. Closer he can get to Forster now, the further behind him Forster will be after the next stop. Now's the time to do it because his tires are fresh.
Just past the halfway point of this race, this event brought to you by JP Alfonso Studios, the title sponsor of the GT3 series. Tattoo shop is based in Norcross, Georgia. See jpalfonsostudios.com for all the recent work and booking information.
While we're on the topic of JP Alfonso, let's talk about him right now because he's currently scored in P3 as our lone Porsche. Another guy like Schliemann who's had an absolutely dreadful race up to this point, but finding himself capitalizing on others' misfortunes. He too has a fresh set of tires, albeit he's 34 seconds and closing to our leader. He might find himself yet in a podium paying position, and that's not good news for Forrester and Jose Puig, who have a quite large deficit in the points to Alfonso. So if Alfonso can keep himself here in P3, be sensible and not be involved in any more incidents, he might yet end up with that points lead leaving Spa-Francorchamps.
Well, he is in the points lead. It's more so how big the lead's going to be. I think is the huge question.
Absolutely, but as it stands now, he's currently got a 56-point lead, 203 points to 147 on Jose Puig. An even bigger lead, 203 back to 137 on Forrester. His closest competition was Salazar, a mere 4 points back, but Salazar has scored a 7th, almost a lap down, if not more at this stage. But it looks like this day might be a lemons to lemonade kind of day for JP Alfonso.
On the bright side, in the case of Salazar, he's been able to pass a couple cars because of some of the issues with the Deans, with the issue with Adam Barker off the pit lane, with Justin Knapp having some time lost. He's already gone to 7th, and he's coming to the pit lane again. Only 11 laps of the stint. This may be now a forced 3-stop.
This is definitely, it would be on schedule for him now because he would have presumably taken fuel during his 3-minute long pit stop for repairs, which occurred on lap 2, I believe. So he's right in line with the stint length. He was just out of fuel. I don't suspect he's got much issue other than having an empty fuel tank. But absolutely right. I mean, there's just been a fair amount of attrition in this race, and he's clawed himself up quite a lot. It certainly needs more to break his way to kind of stay in striking distance for Alfonso. But I suspect if he just continues to push and forge on, he's going to find himself with a few more points than he expected coming lap 3.
See how Salazar's pit stop goes here. Essentially would need to go about 13, maybe 12 estimated laps to make it to the end on gas. Might have to do a little bit of saving. Be able to try and get in a spot to score around the top 7 or 8 in the points. Get around midfield at least to minimize the damage.
That's an interesting proposition with 26 minutes now to go. It's possible. Certainly, I've won races in the real world telling my driver to save fuel through an entire stint and cut out an entire pit stop. So it's definitely a realm of possibility. And even some of the cars that he's close by to, if he gets 40 seconds or so more track position, possibly more, that could vault him up even as high as maybe 6th. Might not be a stretch here. So interesting to see if Salazar can save enough fuel to make it to the end and make this the first final pit stop.
Keep an eye, meanwhile, on Don York. Jamie Maudsley, intriguingly enough, is trying as hard as he might to keep within range of York. The tough thing when it comes to Don's case, he too was a part of the repair situation. It's likely to have to come in soon. So Maudsley might be in the conversation for a mid-pack finish, depending on how things play out.
Yeah, certainly we've seen stranger things here in the JP Alfonso Studios Ignite GT3 series. Even as far back as the Charlotte Roval race where we had 4 finishers and P4 was on the lead lap despite having a delta between 3 and 4 seconds per lap off of the leaders. Still found themselves in a very good finishing position. So not out of the realm of possibility for Maudsley, whose modest pace could find him in a very good finishing position today.
I'm going to keep an eye on Forrester. He's lost about nearly 2 seconds or so, at least 1.5 seconds at minimum to Puig. So the difference in the tires starting to come in. He's running about 1 second off his personal best lap times compared to what the 8 machine's doing.
That's right. And then last lap, it was a 1 second difference from Forrester to Puig in a single lap. So um, he's hemorrhaging time here, but it's also double-edged sword because as Puig is pushing now to try to close that gap, he's wearing out his tires that have to stay on until the end. Whereas Forrester is coming into the pits in the next 4 minutes or so to get a new pair of shoes. That's going to be his time to shine and claw back any time that Jose is taking out now. So he really just needs to make sure that he doesn't make a mistake. It's expected he's losing pace to Puig. It's just not giving Puig any more time making a mistake.
And the major thing to consider too is, in the case of Puig here, when he does take the fuel only too, going to have to make sure he capitalizes on every drop. And that's the major concern when you think about it on taking the fuel strategy that's being taken here potentially with Forrester, because you take out the equation of maybe a light fuel or taking a little less fuel towards the end of this race to save a couple seconds. You've given that right to the hands of the 8.
Absolutely. You certainly have to be up on the wheel, if you will, on your fuel numbers and how much you need to go to the end. Certainly not putting in more than you need, but also knowing that point in the race where if I stop now, fill the tank, I can go to the end. I think your Forrester is getting very, very close to that point, and that's sort of an easy thing, an easy target for these guys who are doing their strategy and driving at the same time. Do is just know what lap I have to be on where I can pit, fill the tank, and make it to the end. Certainly, if you do that, and especially with Forrester going 1 lap longer than these guys, he's going to have more fuel on board. So to get to full from where he is going to take less time than Puig will take, who has now got 1 more lap on his stint at this stage. So really interesting things. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It can come down to who's got a better handle on their fuel numbers. Getting that extra second, 2 or 3 in the pit lane could make the difference for this race.
By the way, pit stops, and now this gets interesting. With 10 to go, Forrester elects to come in, and not only that, we'll have to check for Justin Knapp. So he's electing to take the full fuel you'll need to make it to the end here.
Yeah, certainly. Hopefully this car in front of him in pit lane is doing the pit speed and not holding him up here, Justin Knapp. Certainly the easiest place to be matched with anybody on track is either behind the safety car or on pit road. But hopefully there's no delta loss there as Salazar lets Jose Puig by, and Jose is entering now Al Rouge and Radion, trying to get as much of a gap as he can before he himself has to stop. This is very interesting to see how this plays out. I think Forrester's right on the money with being full to the end, and that being just enough. See what Puig does. If Puig runs another lap or 2 and then fills his tank, he could take on excess fuel, and that could cost him some valuable time in pit lane.
So we'll see how this plays out in turn now in about 5 laps time at least, maybe 4. That's likely going to be that cutoff point to where this difference in strategy is going to be, not to be surprised. Forrester up on the jacks. There goes the cookie monster of Knapp, who has fallen a lap and a half down. Also coming in this time on the strategy differences, John Berry has elected to enter the pit lane. There goes Forrester.
Right, it will be interesting to see here. Does he make it out without hitting the wall? He does. Excellent work. Now it begins. He's got to get these tires up to temperature and pressure and then push like hell. Now close the gap that Jose Puig opened when he had new tires. This would be really interesting to see where these guys shake out. I think at the end of the day, they're going to come out of pit lane right close to each other, and it'll be a nice little street fight to the end.
It's going to be more than a street fight. It's going to be a strategy matchup. Bit of a chess match breaking on the racetrack at this point. Barry, by the way, just reached his pit stall. Motley also just came in for a scheduled stop, also taking the same strategy from some of the others. How does the 8 respond? Not a surprise, they're going towards the end of the tank here. 9 estimated laps to go this time, under 20 minutes on the clock.
He's got clean air. He's going to make every bit of use of it as much as he can here, because he knows he's got to maintain the gap that he's chipped away to Forster before Forster has a chance to get it back. Going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out. Also looking at Salazar, his pace is reduced quite a bit. He's running about 2 to 3 seconds off the pace, which would indicate to me he is fuel saving. It could be interesting to see where Salazar shakes out here with a few of these still yet to pit. If he can make it to the end here after stopping with 28 to go, that's definitely the right call for Salazar, in my opinion. Alfonso still just kicking it up front, now 28 seconds back from Jose Puig. A bit back to Forrester.
Oh, Puig just had an issue. See that smoke puff up the road? That was your race leader. Puig losing some time here. And an inopportune time.
That's certainly not good news for Puig. To see what that might have been.
Still able to hold on to the lead, obviously. But he did lose a few seconds. Previous section through Malmedy had a slide. No contact with the wall at least, but it is enough to have now cost him 1 to 2 seconds. That might be critical compared to Forster's times.
Absolutely. That loss there is a large chunk of what he was able to take out on his new tire run last stint, or at the beginning of this stint for Jose, I should say. So, yeah, certainly not the time in the race where you want to lose it when you're trying to that gap, maintain it, or even grow it. Forrester, who's now good to go to the end on new tires and chomping at the bit to get that lead back.
Mind for reference, right now Forster 59 seconds back, about 1 minute back for this lap. By the way, technical issues for Puig. Car is not damaged down the middle of a straightaway, as it may or may not appear now.
It's interesting, as he goes by the stripe one more time, he is really taking this tank down to the minimum. He's certainly looking to reduce his refill time and his stationary time on pit lane. Going to be absolutely critical, because he is going to need about 67 seconds gap to Forster to come out on top with the pit lane time and the time stationary. So Jose might have lost a lot more time than we thought to Forster. Forster's looking in a really good spot right now, about 58 seconds back from Puig. So keep an eye on where these two come out. But I think Jose might have done enough damage to hand it over to Forster.
When it comes to racing, though, anything can happen, and Forster does have some traffic potentially to deal with soon as a factor for how things could play out in the closing stages. Speaking of the marks and how things are going as we look at Forster, trying to some of the series partners, Tam Livery and Hot Rod Setups, their support of this respective series. Still keeping an eye on how Forster plays things out, and now it's almost the calm before the storm.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, he's the first car to have 2 pit stops under his belt. First one to be good to go to the end and fulfill their 4th tire stop. So certainly sitting pretty here, as he's only about 18 seconds off of Giancarlo Schliemann, who we've not talked about too much as of late. He's Schliemann, Santos, Alfonso, and Puig obviously still have to make their second stop with 15 minutes to go. We're getting closer and closer to the end of the race here, so see the top 4 in the pit lane any lap now, if not this one.
So I'm curious on this with your racing repertoire. Any plans to do anything in the lines of Spa this year on your schedule?
For me, no. It's certainly something I want to do. I mean, the 24-hour Spa is an incredible event. There's some other series, like the 24-hour series Creventic, that run there. Certainly something I want to do. I haven't really done it. it's kind of up there with the Indy 500. That's one I haven't haven't done much IndyCar stuff. I certainly want to do, and when the opportunity presents itself to do that, I'll jump on it in a heartbeat and go over there. I've actually spent some time in Spa, but never at the racetrack, so certainly kind of the one that got away for me.
Take a look at Forrester's viewpoint here, and I'm curious, what is the town like compared to what you've heard on the racetrack portion?
The town's quite amazing. It's a nice, quaint Belgian town, as you'd expect. I mean, there's nice, quiet things. There's obviously a natural spa there, hence the name. But yeah, it was an incredible place to visit. Just sort of disappointing that the track day we were meant to take part of that day that I was there was rained out. So fortunately, still have yet to do anything, including driving it at the track. But yeah, the town more than made up for it. Super cool little place. It was great. We actually caught a bachelor party there in the town square. Everybody was dressed up in lederhosen. The groom-to-be was out of his mind, blitzed. Probably didn't know where he was, but it was quite the spectacle and the nice little party they had in the square, and everyone enjoyed it. So it was the testament to the cool vibe and just the nature of the people there at Spa. It was really incredible to spend some time there.
In the case of Forrester, currently looking like he's chatting along with teammates. Keep in mind, Santos is still running, but dealing with a bit of bumper damage from a own incident. Incident on their own, should rather say, being already out. So essentially, feedback coming in, but he has equalized past lap or two compared to Puig.
I think we're going to see Puig here in the lane. No, one more by. He's got the fuel tank in that Ferrari, I think. It's going to be interesting.
Some drivers have gone 11 laps indeed. JP Alfonso's reaching his 11th, so likely Alfonso's lap coming up. But this could get intriguing for the final 10 minutes or so. We'll keep an eye on Alfonso here. He is holding on to a small advantage over Santos, now 1 second, with a bad run through Blanchimont. Already looking like he's going a little bit slower than usual in this section. There's the stop, all the way through the green paint.
Everybody's ducking in here. It'll be interesting to see if Puig can go one more lap after this one. I suspect he'll be in as well. Schlieman's still circulating now, opting to stay out instead of taking the stop with Alfonso and Santos. It'll be really interesting to see how Alfonso and Santos shake out here. That's going to be a really interesting close battle if the two of them have similar box times here as our final pit stops begin to shake out.
Some of them already letting the cars roll down the hillside. It's very difficult, too, if you don't play this right, to make sure you not only don't miss your pit box, but also avoid speeding.
That's right. That's always something that catches even the best pros out. Even with pit speed limiters, it's very easy to speed, especially coming on to them or getting off of the speed limiters. But we'll see how these two go. We have the slowest stationary drag race of the day here between Alfonso and Forrester. Be short fill for both of them. They only need about 50 to 60% of the tank, as they both look to be very equal there on box time. So got similar fuel loads. They've got it dialed in. Really nice work. No advantage gained by either here, as hopefully they can both get out of the pit lane together without incident. But it looks like Santos has got a nice little run already exiting the pit lane. Nice draft.
Early drawn in lap helping set him up for the move on the left side, heading to Lake Home. 10 minutes on the clock, 5 estimated to go up the stripe. Santos can't make it work though. At the other end of the track, Puig just entered the pit lane, so the battle for the race win is on.
Forrester's really got to put some time down here, but I don't think he's going to emerge anywhere but first, so long as he doesn't make a mistake here, cost himself some time.
Gonna take some time for Puig. Keep an eye on that interval. Alfonso and Santos still close. Santos did use his one fast repair available for this race, as a result of the back bumper contact he had coming out of Jackie X on his own previously. Here comes the run for Santos. Thinking about a move, defensive line, and it will Fenges, moving to the left side of the racetrack. Now lined back into the racing groove, single file.
I don't know that they're going to keep up this for 9.5 minutes, but it's certainly a good show now. Alfonso hanging on for dear life, and that sole Porsche 911 that's out there in the field. He's really got to be thinking big picture, especially given where his main rival, Juan Salazar, is in the field. It's not the end of the world for JP if he finishes third, as we have Jose Puig leaving the pit lane. Where does that put Forrester? Forrester is coming through Al Rouge now.
Puig
They're going to
with
be
this saving.
very close.
It's still going to be close. Yes, you're right. But Puig, 3 seconds less on fuel compared to those who pit a lap ago. That is a huge amount of delta. That's the reason Forrester is behind by 2 seconds.
That's right. But lest we forget, Forrester's tires are much newer than Puig's. So all he has to do is keep pushing, apply the pressure here. So we see that 3-second gap is already deteriorating rapidly.
Is that enough of a difference on tire wear, though? We're talking 10 laps difference. Well, there's a good answer. Nearly off the track goes the Ferrari.
I know even in iRacing world, new tires are always greater than old. And is Jose going to have to serve a penalty? He was very clearly 4 off there on the last corner.
No slowdown in sim. Still able to keep it going. Still, nearly a second separation. The next battle, Alfonso Santos sees Santos off the racetrack.
We're going to have 2 very good battles involving Mercedes here for all 3 podium spots, for that matter.
Santos going to have to regroup, though, nearly a full second back as a result of that mistake heading through the comb. Well, kicking off, coming to 4 estimated laps to go this time around, with the battles for 4th and 5th, 1st and 2nd, net. Likely picking up. Schliemann, the last of the drivers yet in pit, just came in, so the pit window closes. Final service of the race.
That'll be short time for him on pit lane, but I think that's going to cycle him back behind Santos. He's going to have to live with 6th place today, I believe.
So, Puig and Forrester expect to drive on by. They are still separated out by at least about 1.5 seconds. Alfonso looking to try and put on the afterburners in the Porsche. Alfonso amongst those who really helped his competitors tonight in turn. In fact, a couple times before tonight's action, helped share some setups for some of the drivers driving in the 488 GT3 entry.
That Alfonso is one hell of a guy putting on this series, as well as really helping anybody that wants to come and join him. I think it's really great what he does, and what he does to nurture the competition in his own series. And speaking of competition, Jose Puig and Philip Forrester made the identical time for Sector 3 last time by at a 23.733. They are to the 1,000th right there with each other. So this is going to be interesting to see how this plays out, but they are right there on pace, identical, sector after sector.
You know what's going to be really interesting? See the purple car? The shortest fuel of the day. Schliemann has cut in front of Santos. Santos is back. Schliemann has a chance at a podium still.
He does. Never want to count him out, but it's obviously got a lot of delta difference coming out of pit lane to those that are already on track. But if anybody can make up that time, it's certainly going to be Schliemann in that Lamborghini.
Oh, and a massive slowdown. Alfonso nearly stopping in the heart of the racetrack. That gives Santos the 3rd position. Another mistake for Alfonso with a slowdown and a near incident coming out of Mountain. 2nd time we've seen that just about unfold now in the race.
And the same place on track too, so really good heads-up driving by Santos and Schliemann to keep themselves in it. But I think you're right now that's opened the door. Schliemann's there in 4th. Santos is running wide. Schliemann is closing that gap rapidly. He's on the bumper. A short time, I think, for Schliemann.
Lehman looking to set it up, a little bit more of a different arc compared to the quicker in the gas motions from Santos, heading to Le Fonges. Sleeman within 1 car length, Alfonso still staying within the draft. Lap traffic is ahead as well for them, with Justin Knapp within 15 car lengths. Coming to 2 estimated laps to go, under 5 minutes on the clock to work with from Spa.
Yeah, and Alfonso is back there trying his hardest and going 4 wheels off, so I think he's really laying it all on the line, but he's really putting himself at risk for more
in trouble,
slowdowns as he has to
Alfonso!
spin.
JP Alfonso is looped it, coming to the final 2 laps or so in this race. A snap through Blanchimont, and Alfonso's chance at the top 5 is gone.
That's exactly what Alfonso didn't need, and the biggest benefactor from this now is Juan Salazar. They're only 2 positions apart to 7. It looks like that's where they will end up, so really not a big damage to Salazar's for the championship here, as he's going to lose less points than he expected much earlier in the race. It's really not good news for Alfonso, but good news for us because we're going to keep the championship battle tight.
I'm Sleeman on the setup. 4 minutes to work with. Defensive line Santos. Just Sleeman take the move. He tries it. Left side, heading to Lake Home. Santos has not been known to back off in this race today. He gets outbranked instead by the Lamborghini. Having to check up is Santos. Santos trying to find a way to cut back underneath through Malmedy. Instead goes wide into the sand trap. That loses ground for Santos.
That's going to be all she wrote, I think, for Schliemann. He's not one to make mistakes, and he'll certainly set sail and forget about his mirrors here in a couple of car links.
Been eventful. So now, we get ready for what may potentially be an extra lap, if not the white flag lap. We'll see how these drivers play out. Looking like on the timer, we may be offset by 20-30 seconds. So we may get an extra lap. Which leads to the huge question for both those battles, for the lead and for third. Do those drivers in the higher up positions on the pylon have enough gas?
That's always the concern, and certainly my job in real life. I always have to account for that one extra lap that might come after the clock has expired, and we're certainly looking like that's going to be the case here as well. And Jose Puig, as the leader, he could slow down certainly and reduce this lap time to make sure the clock expires before he crosses it. Only if he didn't have Philip Forrester less than 2 seconds behind him. He doesn't have that luxury of manipulating the clock a bit to take 1 lap off of his duty and hoping he has enough fuel. So really interesting to see how this plays out. And certainly if we go 1 more lap into seconds away from the clock expiring, did these guys account for that extra fuel? You know, Forrester stopped basically as soon as you probably could to be safe to the end. You might not have accounted for an entire extra lap after the clock expiring. So it'll be interesting to see how these guys play out, and interesting to see how Juan Salazar makes it out. He's been on track for about 27 minutes now in this tank of fuel, taking it easy. So we'll see how all of this plays out. But I think we got an interesting finish coming up.
Yeah, some drivers in massive fuel save, not just Salazar, but York, by the way, in that situation mentioned 7th. So expecting the white flag this upcoming time around for the race leaders, by the way. Again, when it comes to iRacing, the drivers must see the white flag from Barney. And from the in-sim command, a white flag to be triggered. The interesting thing, by the way, you mentioned Salazar's fuel save, and how Don York's in the same situation. York is electing to currently use the 1 car as a fuel buffer before this checker flag. So a few strategies coming into play. 1.7 seconds for Puig, who looks to try and take the white flag this time by expecting this to be the final time around coming up. Final time around from Spa.
Who keeps on pace? That's the question this last lap. Who keeps the juice on?
Gonna be tight for some. There's Barney already waving that flag well towards the starting line. Remember the finishing line just outside the bus stop. Forster's lost 4 seconds in the past sector alone. Now gains it back this time up the hillside. Puig still has that massive buffer over the Mercedes though.
And this is certainly one of the worst tracks on the planet to get 1 extra lap at near zero on the clock because it is so long. 4.65 miles, about 7 kilometers. It's not a short lap, so if you don't really have your fuel numbers down, you're going to find yourself sitting on the side of the track in the Belgian countryside.
It's absolutely been exciting tonight, but it's not home sweet home yet for the Ferrari. Forster now has gained back 4/10 this lap already. Puig starting to lose a little bit of ground. Starting to go a little bit wider on some of these corners, and they may have Jamie Maudsley to deal with the traffic depending on how things play out. There's the track map. Keep in mind, 3rd and 4th are also fairly tight, heading to the final sectors.
There's about a 2/10 difference between Puig advantage Forster there in Sector 1. And about another 10th there in Sector 2. So Forster's certainly closing up. The question is whether it's going to be enough. And he's got no more laps to do it. So he's got to really push here and hope that he's got enough fuel and Jose doesn't to make a move here in the final corners.
York and Salazar have both ran out of gas down the front stretch. They'll have to dodge them coming to the checker flag here. Puig now losing more ground. Forster within a second. Puig looking to see if there's enough gas to make it to the finish line. There it goes. Maudsley starts to run out. Puig dodges left. He takes the victory from Spa.
Really good effort from those guys there. As Jose throws it into the wall, does Forster as well. Good effort from the two of them as we see Carlos Schliemann, a very likely but unlikely candidate today for a podium finish, but he finds himself after 2 incidents and a very bizarre parking on the side of the track. He's got 1 bus stop left to go for a top 3 well-earned podium finish for Mr. Schliemann tonight.
So Schliemann, after getting bounced, banged, and bopped around, finishes in 3rd to round out the podium. Santos behind him, able to hold on to 4th, while JP Alfonso was in the conversation for those spots before. That was until a slide through Blanchimont. Instead, we'll have to see him settle to 5th. But the disaster of running out of gas, coming to the checkered, and getting past before the finishing line in the case of Salazar. Salazar lost 2 spots by running out of gas to Alfonso for the points.
That's right. That's really going to help Alfonso. It'll ease his already bad day. But I think that's going to still keep a very, very interesting perspective on the championship going forward. We'll have to see how the points shake out now with Puig and Forster having a very good day. Alfonso's not so good day to Salazar's no good, very bad day. I think we're going to see a really tight championship with the top 4. This is certainly going to keep it the series to watch here on iRacing.
John Barry talked on the radio about the fuel strategy. Just barely able to make it on his own power in 6th. Don York did top off. Will be the last driver to finish this race. So the entire field waiting to see when car 153 crosses the line. It's the final driver to take the checker flag under their own power.
Certainly not the call you wanted to make on the 3-stop strategy there from York, but certainly one that paid dividends there as he's going to find himself in front of Maudsley and, of course, Juan Salazar. So robbing more points from the number 1 in his quest to get Alfonso on the top step of the championship standings.
So Don York finish out the running order here today with about 35, maybe 30 seconds to spare on the runoff clock. What was a strategy-filled race here today from Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. There goes York, and in turn, that will and should allow us in turn to look towards the unofficial race results here from Spa. As York pulls off the circuit and the celebrations start for some of the drivers, it's Jose Puig who ends up picking up the victory here from Belgium. Some of the virtual fans getting to cheer him on along for today's race, as Jamie Monds, we believe, also amongst those trying to coast, hence the extra few seconds before things circulate to a full gridding. There it goes in the session. Forster also still able to pick up a solid finish after back-to-back now second place finishes, coming so close both weeks in a row. Schliemann, Santos, Alfonso the top five, with Barry York the last on the lead lap. Let's talk about the reason for the extra few seconds there was Jamie Monsley trying to coast his car to the finish. He already had been lapped, but he did get across the line before the finishing line for the leaders, hence why there was the extra few seconds. Salazar, because he ran out of gas coming to the line and did get lapped, he finished in 9th. Knapp in 10th, followed by Barker, the Deans, and Sorensen, the 14 entrants here today. Let's look once again at your unofficial race results here today. Racing League JP Alfonso Studios GT3 Series from Spa, where today is Jose Puig who picks up the victory. What was a strategy-filled one. It's his second win on the campaign. Jose?
Hello?
A little bit nerve-wracking on the strategy. How would you describe it?
It was I don't know what happened. I mean, everybody disappeared, and it was only Philip and me. So I said, okay, let's concentrate, no fuck ups, and I almost fucked it up.
Yeah, there was a big crash behind you, to put it lightly, but conscious strategy between you and Forrester tonight. What was kind of the reaction to seeing Forrester elect to take the top off to start the race for the first stop?
Yeah, my reaction actually on the radio channel, I asked him, "What the heck are you 13 seconds ahead? What did you do?" Oh, different strategy. I said, "Oh, okay, don't worry. I mean, all you can do is drive and try to do good lap times and see what happens at the end." And I was very happy when I went out in after the second stop, and he was behind me. I said, "Yeah, we made it."
Did you make it in this race here today? Still one more to go on the calendar. Next week, it's Imola. Your thoughts going there for the season finale?
I don't like Imola. I like Barcelona and Spa. That's why I won in those two tracks. And Red Bull, but Giancarlo was too fast there. But I don't like. But I'll do my best. I'll do a bit of practice Wednesday, and Thursday, and see what happens next Monday.
Well, congratulations on your second victory of the season. Well deserved.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Jose Puig comes away with the win. Philip Forster, for a second straight week, comes away in second spot, this time in a different way. He's with Trevor.
Hey, Philip, man, nice run there. It looked like for a moment you were on the right strategy there in closing down on Puig, who really went deep into his second tank of fuel and only had a short fill time. Talk to us about what your key to success was today.
I watched the broadcast from last week, and I was like, they're talking about pit strategy, and I'm going to take it. I tried it this week, doing short fueling first and then the long fuel last. I thought I had it, but I just didn't have the pace for the first place. But overall, it was a good race. I probably could have caught Jose, but I was just waiting for a mistake that never happened.
I copy that. What I do in real life is I'm a race strategist, and having watched a number of these, I think the key to doing this is that short fuel fill at the end, and that's something that I try to do in my endurance races as well. Is taking the short one early tends to pay less dividends in the end than taking the short one late. So something to keep in mind maybe next time too is these races for Ignite, they tend to favor those who do the tire change early and the short fuel stop late. Certainly have seen Alfonso, Jose, and Schliemann win races with that exact same strategy. So some food for thought as you move forward. But you certainly were showing everybody why you were front runner in this series. You drove a really nice race. I think you had the least number of mistakes of anybody out there, and talk to us about how much focus you put into it to make sure you drive a clean race. Cleaner than most.
It's Spa. You just gotta watch where your left side and right side tires come off the curb. It's a tough track whenever you don't know it and never did a 24-hour or a really long endurance race. You get acquainted with it when you run more laps, and that's where I think I come in at, because I've got so many laps here. And with the strategy, I normally do the last pit stop as the splash and go, but this race I just wanted to change it up more.
At 10-4, you certainly got to try some new things. Well, speaking of experience, how do you feel at Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari, our last and final race here with the JP Alfonso Studios GT3 series? You got a lot of laps there as well?
No, I don't. I have a few laps with the Porsche Cup, but that's about it. So I'm iffy on that track. We'll see how it goes next week, though.
Copy that. Well, practice makes perfect, man, and we'll look for you up front next week.
All right, thank you, Trevor.
That's Phil Forster coming away in second tonight. Third spot, despite a lot of bumping it around in that Lamborghini. Sleeman comes away in third. How was it getting involved in a couple of incidents of not your own making?
It was a roller coaster of a race in really all regards, in terms of my car bumping about, my sanity going up and down. There was a lot going on there at the start and coming out of the pits, and at one point my throttle got stuck at 20%, the software, so I had to stop and open up the control panel to reset them. There was a bit of everything this race. It was very entertaining.
Oh, so that explains what happened in that situation. So when you noticed that something was wrong with the throttle, what was that panic like? Because from our viewpoint, it looked like you stopped on the track for 30 seconds.
Yeah, that was about it. I mean, thankfully the pedal was stuck at about maybe 20 to 25%, and so it wasn't full throttle, because I believe I was also behind another car at that point. So I was able to get it stopped and hold the brake. For some reason the brake worked, the pedal didn't. And I was able to just tab out, open the software, reset it, and get going again. But it was a bit of a heartbreak. I think I had a relatively good pace overall, just a lot of stuff going on this race.
Well, next race is Imola. Your opinions on that track?
I really like that track. Imola is one of my favorites. It's very technical. It's very fun, but it's very difficult to pass. And this Lambo's straight line speed, as I think we might have seen today, does not do that any favors down the only one straight and potential point to pass into turn one. So let's hope for a good qualifying and then see how it goes.
Well, congratulations on the podium once again. Well fought today.
Thank you very much.
Carlos Sleeman coming away with the third step on the podium. Lucas Santos fell 5 seconds back of the Lamborghini at the line. He finished fourth. He's with Trevor.
Hey Lucas, good run today, man. It was quite messy out there, and it seemed like you were always close by, but not super involved like some of our other drivers. Talk to us about how you were dodging bullets today.
Yeah, I think the main thing that I came into this race was, it's my first one in this league, so the overall was just to survive a lot, and I'm glad to say that I did it. But as you said, of being there, but not being able to, say, pull those moves off, but being able to be close to other drivers, I think it was just all down to my tires. I just, for myself and for some other drivers that I've raced with and some of my teammates, there's a little bit of a tendency that I don't do well on my tires, so throughout any of the corners, I'd stay, and then all of a sudden when it comes to the exit, the car would just kind of slip out every now and then. So it felt a bit messy, but I was kind of happy that we still finished in the end.
Yeah, 10-4. I mean, it was a good run. You found yourself quite high in the order, and that's not the easiest place to be in this series with guys like Jose Puig, Giancarlo Schliemann, JP Alfonso, even Juan Salazar, who found some bad fortune at the beginning. So there's some pretty good killers in this series. So for you to run up front is quite the accomplishment. Your first time out with JP Alfonso Studios Ignite GT3 series. So I assume, judging by the tone of your voice, you're going to be back for more, huh?
Yeah, it'll be the plan. I've got a lot on my plate so far with Scoochie Moose Motorsports. We're trying to get ourselves out there a lot with other races, such as Bathurst coming up this weekend. But definitely going to be coming back for the last round. I think it's at Imola, if I'm not mistaken. So I can't wait to get myself out there again.
That's correct. It is Imola. So how do you like that track? Is that one of your favorites?
It's up there. It's up there. I've had a few races there in GTs, mainly in the Ferrari, so it's going to be kind of interesting to try it out in the Mercedes, see how we feel there. But overall, it's a decent track on my list, so I'd be happy to see where I go there.
Right on. Well, we're looking forward to you being up front next week at Imola and taking away some championship points from our front runners and keeping the story interesting.
Yeah, that'll definitely be interesting. It was great fun going up into the top 5. I didn't even know if I was going to be doing that from P9. So all it is just going to be eyes forward, push, and see some red.
There you go. Well, we'll be looking out for you now that you're a part of the JP Alfonso Studios Ignite GT3 Series family. Nice run tonight, Lucas.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Luke Santos in the 4th spot tonight. Meanwhile, JP Alfonso had an eventful race, but still finished in the top 5. First things first. How, in your words, would you describe this race from your car?
Oh, it was horrible. It was horrible. Like, it was very frustrating. The last quarter of the race, I was frustrated, not focusing, not concentrating. My tires were already gone. I think everything started going downhill when I think I caught up with a lap car, and third place catch up with me. Santos catch up with me, and then after that, I was frustrated. I got to slow down, which results for me to give up those 2 spots, third and fourth, and I mean, and everything it was all on the track.
Have to ask about the first of those slowdowns, though, the big one. What happened essentially there with that situation? We know the slowdown came from a Rouge Renion, but what happened in the sequence of trying to get the time to avoid the penalty?
Are you referring to the first slowdown?
Yes.
Where the big incidents?
Correct.
I mean, the whole entire the whole entire time the car was very loose. I cannot manage to have any grip or anything, so that's why the slowdown came in the first place. Then I realized that Juan also had a slowdown, so my strategy was to get in front of him for the two of us, serve the slowdown, let the other guys pass, and hopefully by the time that the penalty was cleared up, I would still be in front of him, and I would have a better chance to fight. And you guys saw everything after that. Everything was a complete mess. My car got pushed back to the track. I made contact with Giancarlo, and I mean, and everything was a mess after that. So unfortunate.
Well, on the positive, there's one more race to go in the season, and you're still in the hunt of the championship. You and Salazar to decide it for Imola. Your confidence for the championship for the finale.
Well, we'll see. That's not a track that I'm very familiar with. Usually, when I see it on the schedule, I tend to avoid it because it's not a track that I can find a rhythm. It's very technical. So I mean, all I have to do is just keep pushing. I was hoping for a better result today, so I can afford to maybe miss the last race and not have to be in the fight. But well, today didn't come out the way that I was expecting it. So I guess I had to fight it out on the last track.
Once again, congrats to the top 5. See you for the championship finale next week.
Thank you guys once again, and thank you to all the guys. And definitely, I would like to apologize to those who we made contact and we kill along the way. So
Thank you very much, JP.
thank you.
JP Alfonso rounding the top 5. I'd like to thank him, Lucas Santos, Carl Schliemann, Bill Forrester, Jose Puig for taking the time to speak with us during post-race coverage here on Maconi Entertainment. Trevor, it was an intriguing one for a lot of the night. Some troubles early, but it all came down to strategy. How would you describe this race?
As a strategist, the ones that come down to strategy are my favorites. So it was really interesting to see how all these guys handled the same situation in so many different ways, and how some of the guys like Salazar took a big shot to try to gain some track position back after early race misfortune, and especially even having just that almost ideal crossing of the finish line to the white flag with only seconds left on the clock. That's, you know, a lot of guys' worst nightmare, because you didn't account for that extra lap. But it looked, outside of the guys that did take a big swing in the back, like Don York and Juan Salazar, it looked like everybody else kind of had their stuff sorted out and had that planned for. So it was really an interesting one to see, especially, you know, like Giancarlo Schliemann having all of the issues that he had to still end up on the podium, and Alfonso there to be in such a good position, only to have a slowdown penalty and then a big spin take all of that away, to then have Juan Salazar, his main championship rival, stopped on the side of the track and losing even more ground to him. It'll be really interesting going into Imola. I think that's just going to be a race that everybody's going to go out and try to win, with the exception of JP Alfonso. He's got currently a 7-point lead in the championship, so I think he's got to finish like 7th or 8th if Salazar wins, and he'll take it. So there's not a ton of pressure on him going into it, so I think it should be treated by just about everybody but Alfonso himself as just an absolute bare-knuckle street fight. Imola is a great place to have those.
And on that note, we'd like to thank tonight's sponsor, JP Alfonso, as well as the broadcast partners here at Maconi Entertainment, being a part of tonight's action. Coming the action tonight was myself, Justin Prince, along with Charlie McClure, and our producer, Eddie Smith, with cameras provided by the great Dougie Beard. So we'd like to thank you, the viewers, for tuning in for tonight's action. See you on the 13th for the final race of this season in the Ignite Racing League GT3 Series, with support from JP Alfonso Studios, when we head to Italy, to Imola. Until then, stay tuned on our social media pages for more upcoming broadcasts. A thank you to the entire staff for their work bringing this racing to you. This has been a production of Maconi Entertainment. We'll see you next time. Good night.